All right, so I'm Kyle Smith. I am mentor, and this is Mr. Paul Vanstone. He is going to be the mentee for this project. And Mr. Vanstone has worked at Walnut Grove for almost a decade now, or a little bit over a decade. And he is looking to implement more technology into his classroom. And as we're going to talk about today with the implementation of Desmos, he has already been using Desmos to certain extents because the students get it on their Georgia Milestones assessment. We're going to be looking specifically to engage student engagement within the classroom, as well as allowing students to gain proper use of Desmos for the Milestones assessment. So, Mr. Vanstone, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst lesson you've taught and 10 being the best, how would you rank the lesson that you did today?
I think it was probably like about a 7 or 8.
Any particular reason?
Well, it was in one sense it was kind of great for my level of students. I knew that we needed to work on some of our graphing skills.
And what level of students do you typically have?
To get into year-long algebra, you have to have had a 75 or below in the previous math course. Most of the time it's 8th graders. Sometimes we have the red shirt freshmen. So 75 or below is the criteria to get into the class. And I say that it was like that. It's good for them because they work on graphing, but I think if it was more like context type questions and stuff like that, that's what we need to reach for. Maybe then I would have given it a 10 if we'd had like 1 or 2 of those. If we'd built towards that.
Right.
Yeah.
So what pleased you about the lesson overall?
I think the students got engaged. I think it did accomplish like some of the goals of having them examine what are solutions to these systems, identifying places that are not. They had to really consider about the intersection point as well, and hopefully they developed some understanding of whether the solid lines, a pair of solid lines, would then mean the intersection point was included,
Right.
things like that. So I think that helped.
So you kind of already mentioned it about, going more from a graphic standpoint to more context-based. What would be potentially something else that you would do to move a lesson closer to that 10 instead of that 7 or 8 that you're looking at?
I think we'd have to incorporate more reading, like a reading context scenario. I don't think for my level of student, I could integrate something where they would have to come up with their own inequality constraints, but
Right.
probably would need to reach for that. But if they had the context question, and then instead of saying which point is the solution, we could use a context question, like which thing would meet the needs of this scenario and this scenario together, like the overlap, right?
Right.
Which one would meet the needs of this scenario but not this one?
Right.
But use it in the context of the scenario.
Right.
I think we reach there, it'd be a 10.
Right.
But that may be like a day 2 with year long. I don't know if we could do that in one sitting.
So, specifically about their use of Desmos then, what would you have liked to see differently to help them be more involved with that system?
I don't know if we needed a lot of improvement. I mean, they were pretty engaged as far as, I feel like they were pretty engaged. Like
Right.
they were moving the points. One thing that I probably could have added with the slides, with the way I ran it, was that they included the coordinates of the point. I know that they had to do the coordinates of the point in the Desmos to show it, but when we added that also into some slides that we used, I think they should include the coordinates as well, in hindsight.
Have you ever done like a actual lesson through Desmos rather than kind of here's a sheet, here's your questions from the sheet, and then just use Desmos in that way, more like it would be on the actual milestones?
I have not.
Okay.
I'm still a little bit dinosaurish in that regard.
Right, but that's what we're here for. I'm here for. We're here together to fix that. So what would that look like to you in terms of using more context? Again, you said it might be a day 2 type thing more than a day 1, which is totally understandable. What would it look like for you to potentially try to teach a lesson in that way, where it's kind of almost more like a slideshow with interactions for the students to use. As opposed to, you know, having separate tabs open, everything is done through Desmos for you, and it looks more like what the EOC exam would look like.
Like if it was sequential, like
Yes.
like a progressive as it went
Yes.
through it. Well, it depends on how brave you are. Like you
Right.
might have them actually create the inequality constraint for the two scenarios that became one scenario.
Right.
You know, you might have them do that, but that would be really ambitious for my level student. Like you do those things, but to have it building,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then the end result could be totally out in left field. That may not matter if we're grading it for just the product.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think it would be pretty ambitious, but
Okay.
it could be done.
So what would you want to see changed in terms of how students were using Desmos? Anything specific? So I know you mentioned plotting points. We'll look at an example in just a second here, but I know you mentioned plotting the points and also naming the points. Is there anything else that you would want to look at?
I think that was good.
Okay.
I think we were pretty solid right there.
Okay, perfect. How would you measure any changes that was made to the lesson today? So I guess specifically, you know, as opposed to they just plotted points to now naming the points as well.
Oh, and labeling and stuff like that. How would I measure that?
Yeah.
Like the improvement? I feel like it was an improvement because when they actually have to type in the point, you're talking about when they plot it and on Desmos.
Correct.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that helped them because just those students struggle, like which one is the X and the Y and how does it move? Because if they got it wrong and they were aiming for one of the various segments, you know, you got the double shaded, you got single shaded, and no shades at all. You know, if they couldn't hit the target, they had to figure it out by typing in. They got multiple attempts, so that was a little bit of they got instant feedback.
Right.
With it, I didn't have to do anything. They got instant feedback. The
Right.
dot would just move. So I feel like there's some inherent value right there.
So would you say you'd want to go to kind of see what a progressive lesson in that sense would look like, to kind of go more from that just graphical to shifting to more and more context to
Yeah.
then also having kind of that interactable exchange and have it formatted like that, make it look somewhat like the EOC could look like?
Yeah, I think that, you know, in hindsight, that is a worthy goal for sure. That's where you push the year-long kids from maybe being ones or twos to potentially getting a few threes.
Getting a couple threes in there.
And getting a couple threes out of year-long is a big deal.
And what does getting a 3 mean?
I think for year-long, it's a big deal because it shows that they have a deeper understanding. You know, you don't get a lot of threes in the year-long now.
Right, so you keep mentioning 1, 2, 3s. Is there a 4? Is there a 5?
Oh, that's just how the state rates.
Okay, so it's state rating.
It's the state rating,
Okay.
yes, sorry.
Yep. If you could hit the goal of having a bit more of an interactable lesson within Desmos to make it look more like the milestones assessment, would that matter to you at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
Those types, getting the kids pushed to that level shows deeper understanding. And it also, I think, it would improve retention. If they can work towards that, I think you would also increase their retention rate.
All right, perfect. What teaching strategy could you use to possibly hit that goal of having it be a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more sequential, that sort of thing?
I think I'd have to build towards it. Like we would also have to incorporate, maybe for our level of student here in the year-long math, I think there may have to be a day or two of developing building constraints, building inequalities from a context. We'd have to spend a day on that probably. We'd probably have to spend like the day that we just did, where they're just identifying the various places on the inequality after it's graphed. And then we could maybe put it together into a more progressive and ambitious, larger lesson.
So what do you think your next steps would be to help get that goal?
I think we'd have to develop those things. We'd have to have a day where they develop the contextual, where they translate it into inequalities
Right.
from the context, and then, we would do the similar day like we did today, and then we'd also have to redesign the whole thing one more time to include, all those topics together. And then I would scaffold it, you know, to include both types, the days where the type of material where they just built the inequalities from the context, the type of things where they were already given inequalities and they, examined where the points were, to putting that together into one thing.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, thank you, Mr. Vanstone, for sitting with me and talking to me about this, and we'll see if we can't, mix up for you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, cool.